What's going on, guys? This is Miasin, and today I'm actually going to be kind of talking to you guys about what I personally believe might be the top 10 best, cheapest decks to get your hands on for this current July 2021 ban list. So any deck that is usually less than $200 maybe, just for the core, maybe the hand traps are going to be a bit more money, or if you need to play Pot of Prosperity and you can't really afford it, that also could be something. I know back in 2019 when Salamandra was just released, people called it a budget deck, even though it was actually kind of around $1,000 because you did have to play 3 Phantasmi, 3 Imperm, which were like $100 each. So just for 2 play sets of cards, you were already paying $600. So now hand traps are obviously much cheaper, which means that if you actually were able to get your hands on those staples that usually play for a bunch of decks, you're going to be spending significantly less money. But before we start, friendly reminder to like and subscribe. Seriously motivates me to keep making videos like these, and now let's jump right into it. Alright, so the first deck that I actually have on my list is something that people might not even think about, because in their mind it's actually an expensive deck, but that would be Subterror. Now, not Subterror with Dragoon or with Pot of Prosperity, because that would be way too expensive. Obviously, Dragoon is worth almost $100, and Pot of Prosperity is $100 each, and you play several copies of the card in your deck. And you can't really play Extravagance with Dragoon, because what happens if you banish those Dragoons? You're going to have some trouble. So what I recommend you is playing 3 Extravagance in your deck. It's going to be around 120 Canadian dollars, so a bit less in US. And then obviously for the rest of your budget, invested in the core of the Subterror deck, which is worth absolutely less than nothing, and the very cheap floodgates that keep being reprinted every single, I don't know, dual power set, whatever. You know, the ones that actually have a lot of ultra rares and secret rares. Those cheap floodgates, like there can only be one summon limit. Solemn Strike is an expense that you absolutely have to do in this game if you want to have staple cards that can be used regardless of which deck you are playing. So Subterror, definitely a really stable, good, powerful deck that you can get for pretty cheap. Alright, moving on in the list, we actually have a deck that is a bit similar to Subterror in a way, that is Altergeist. The only big expense in the deck really would be the Infinite Impermanence, which honestly isn't even worth that much money anymore. Wow, really. You might be spending a bit of money on the Extravagance and Prosperity, which kind of is annoying, but outside of that, it's really not that big of a deal. Like I said, Extravagance, it went down from like 100 to 40 Canadian. We're spending 120 on 3 Extravagance really isn't that bad when you're making your deck that much more consistent. But if you really cannot afford Extravagance, well, don't worry, just buy all the Altergeist cards. You don't necessarily need hand traps outside of Imperm, obviously, because Imperm Faker is just a necessity for your deck. And then maybe for the spell cards, play Upstart Goblin, 1-for-1, Pot of Duality. These are good substitutes. Obviously, don't play 1-for-1 and Duality and, you know, at once. Kind of would make no sense, but you get the point. Altergeist, definitely a very good deck. The core of the deck is super cheap. Like I said, if you already had the staples, you're definitely not spending over $100 for the entire deck. After that is Code Talker. Now, Code Talker, what I really want to say about this deck is that it's a good investment. Buy the deck now, because when the deck is going to get the Code Talker Heat Soul, it's going to be significantly more expensive. Everybody's going to start jumping on the bandwagon. Oh wow, the deck is so good. I wish I knew about it before. The Code Talker Heat Soul is insane. Salamandra, oh my god. Cyber's decks are broken, obviously, but I'm telling you right now, Cyber's decks are really good. They're always going to keep getting better. I mean, it's an actual type of monster. Of course, it's just gonna get better and better and better over time. An entire season, well, I mean, an entire series was designed around the Cyberus archetype or Cyberus deck, whatever. Trust me, it's definitely the kind of investment that I think you should be doing. Yeah, Code Talker, I don't think the cards are too expensive either. So you should be able to get the majority of the cards for super cheap, as long as people are completely unaware of them. After that, we have another extremely cheap deck core. I think this is worth literally $30, the deck core, and it's really good in case you're good at the game and you were able to playtest with it a lot. If I just say the name of the player who made this deck super popular, you're going to probably it's gonna ring a bell. It's Unchained, Kevin Rodriguez. Yes. The deck is very technical, so if you're not super experienced with Yu-Gi-Oh, it might actually be a bit tricky to play a deck like Unchained. You're not really allowed to make mistakes, and you're always playing from behind because you're not generating mass advantage. You're only just making your money back every single time. So it's good at trading because you can make your opponent lose cards pretty fast, but you can't really make yourself gain resources. It's still a good deck for competitive metagame in general because it still has the ability to break boards. It has a really good Eldritch matchup, that's what I remember, and if you want to play trap cards instead of hand traps, you can always do that. Trap cards usually are much cheaper because hand traps, people always jump on them because they feel like if they don't have hand traps going second against meta decks, they're going to have a really tough time. But again, if you don't really want to waste all of your money, several hundreds of dollars on Ash, Imperm, all those cards, well, don't worry because you can definitely play heavy trap decks, and that's usually the best way to play budget in my opinion. Speaking of traps, yeah, Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss, honestly, it depends if you want to play with traps or heavy hand trap route. You can actually main deck Droll and Logbird, which is not expensive, keeps getting reprints as like a common and stuff like that. Ash, even though it is a common, it's quite expensive. It was there in a structure deck, the Salamandra structure deck, but people pretty much almost only bought the Salamandra structure deck, either if they wanted to build the deck or if they just wanted Ash, and then the rest was basically just a garbage city, or just they would sell it to someone for literally $5. But Ash was single-handedly worth half of the structure deck, and now it's worth like 2 or 3 times more, which is ridiculous. Well, obviously the structure deck is also worth more because Ash is a guaranteed in it. But yeah, why would you spend your money on the Burning Abyss deck? Why do I actually think that it's a good deck? Well, honestly, Zeus is just nasty, Dante is still annoying, Beatrice is still annoying. The deck has such a good recursion game. It's really good if you want to learn the intricacies of Yu-Gi-Oh! And really learn how to grind. So if you're a beginner and you don't want to spend too much money, I want to say Burning Abyss is actually perfect for you because you don't necessarily have to spend so much on different levels. You basically just buy the core, you buy Zeus, which is a card that is super easy to sell anyways, because everybody needs it, everybody wants it. Even if you don't play a single Xyz monster in your entire extra deck, you can still summon Zeus by using Tactic Talents to steal an Xyz monster your opponent controls, putting the Zeus on top of it. It really is a card that everybody, absolutely everybody needs to play, therefore I think Burning Abyss is a great deck. Next up on my list is a personal favorite of mine. I'm kind of biased, but I'm gonna say Cyber Dragon. I don't think it's super expensive. However, Pot of Prosperity definitely is kind of annoying to get your hands on. But if you are playing the OTK version, then the deck is worth absolutely less than nothing at all. You don't have to play hand traps. You can play Dark Ruler, which is worth, I think, $10 if it didn't go up like crazy. But yeah, Cyber Dragon's pretty good deck. I mean, it's not necessarily top tier status, but if you're really, really good at the game, and if it's your day, it's your day. People have won regionals with Cyber Dragons with pretty suboptimal deck lists. It's just to prove that people are going to keep getting good results with Cyber Dragons. You don't necessarily have to spend hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars if you want your deck to win regionals. Alright, this next deck was popularized by Pack, and that is Shaddoll Traps. Very, very, very simple to play. Well, actually not simple, but the concept is rather simple, where you pretty much only play Shaddoll cards. You don't play the Invoked or the Dogmaticas. You really don't have to. You just play a bunch of purple cards, and then you play a bunch of Shaddoll cards with potentially Shaddoll Fusion if you want to, but you really don't have to. If you have the money for Nadir Servant, go for it, but it's really expensive. So if you can't afford Nadir Servant, you might as well just play the full thing, like the Shaddoll Invoked Dogmatica. And that's not necessarily what we're trying to do right now because we're trying to look at the super cheap decks. And Shaddoll Traps is definitely the kind of deck that you can get for maybe $200 if you're not trying to spend your money on crazy things like Imperm or, like I said, Ash and stuff like that. So if you really are just playing the heavy trap route with Solemn Strike, maybe Divine Wrath, Needle Sealing, Torrential Tribute, Punishment, all those cards are really cheap. The Shaddoll monsters are worth nothing. Maybe the extra deck is worth a tiny little bit, but with reprints, it's usually easy to get your hands on them. And if you can do a bunch of trades, or if you can get some cards on a discount or on a big deal, since it really is just one archetype, you're not going to have many issues getting the deck core for, like I said, maybe $100 or $200. Next up is a deck that technically always really existed, technically also talked about it in this video, and that is Salamandra. Salamandra is ridiculously cheap if you don't want to play all the really expensive cards like the hand traps and stuff like that. But if you are really just sticking to the you know, just the strategy of the deck, the Salamandra monsters, trap cards, etc., you're not really going to spend more than probably, I don't know, like $50. The deck is worth nothing. Literally nothing at all. Maybe access code and all those cards, maybe they are a bit more expensive, expensive when you start getting technical in the extra deck, the side deck, or the hand shops. Alright, this next deck core is a bit more expensive because some of the cards are going up. Widow Anchor and Shizuku, and obviously I am talking about Sky Striker. It is a good deck. It's very, 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 very technical as well. So if you don't really know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Too well, or if you keep changing decks every now and then, Sky Striker is definitely not the move for you because you are going to spend a bit more money on the core. And then the staples, sometimes you don't really need them. So the majority of the time you're going to be spending money on cards that you only need for one specific deck. So definitely not the best investment for you. But if you are quite talented with Sky Striker and you've played it a lot in duel simulators, which by the way, I strongly recommend you to always do before buying a deck in real life, just testing the deck several hundreds of times online, and then maybe once you're done completely theorizing, testing everything, once you've done maybe a sheet of all of my matchups, all of my side out, side in, etc., then you might start trying to buy the cards. But don't buy the cards when you think it's going to be a good option. Buy the cards when you know it's going to be a good option. That's why Sky Striker might actually be a pretty dangerous pick for you. Alright, last but definitely not least, this one used to be a tier 1 deck. As a matter of fact, it was the best deck in the game for way too long, and it was really annoying and banned a card that existed also for way too long. Virtual World. So without VFD, can the deck do anything? Absolutely, yeah. It can abuse the living pancake out of Beatrice, just like Drytron. Unfortunately, Drytron not on this deck, not on this list. Sorry. Some of the cards like Drytron Nova or other cards are just way too expensive. I think Drytron Nova is 50, except if I'm mistaking with something else. But yeah, the Drytron cards definitely are expensive. There are a lot of cards that you have to play that are just going to drain your wallet completely. Whereas Virtual World, can't really think of a single one. In the main deck, the entire deck core is worth nothing at all. Shen is worth like $5. Like seriously, that's just such an overpowered Floodgate 2 generic level 9 synchro. In this deck you can summon it infinite times. The rest of the extra deck is not expensive either. If you want to play Dragoon, go for it, but if you don't want to, you can play Invoke Kaliga. So the entire deck might be accessible for like $100, including, you know, the cards that you kind of have to play. And then you can also main deck Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Drop, other stuff like that. Yeah, the entire, well, Forbidden Drop is definitely expensive, but Dark Ruler and Kaijus, whatever. Yeah, the entire deck should definitely be at your disposal for, yeah, not too much money. But anyways, that's pretty much it for my top 10 cheapest decks for the meta that are really good as well. So if you guys have any other suggestions or deck lists that you think I forgot in this video, definitely let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It motivates me so much to keep making videos like these, and I'll see you next time. Peace.